Hello everyone. You know what? I've been talking for half an hour right now. And I've realized that I didn't hit start stream again. And the thing is, I thought, wow, the chat is quite quiet today. So, Christ, I'm so sorry. I never get it right. I think this is one of those times where I thought, what the hell? Why am I doing things incorrectly and I'm not keeping improving? So, hello there, ladies, gentlemen, and unicorns. Thank you so much for still waiting for this horrible catastrophe that is my stream. Yes, I've been streaming for half an hour now, explaining a lot of stuff, showing a lot of stuff, having fun and interacting with the chat, and nobody was quite replying to what I said. And now I realized why, because I didn't hit get live or go live on the stream. This is also why YouTube was telling me I have an excellent connection. So there you go. So thank you for sticking around. At least now I have a lot of practice of the things that I want to show you. So first of all, thank you so much for taking some time out of your Sunday to wait until this dumbass hits go live. So I finally managed to do this, and you're welcome. The other thing is, today I want to show you 3 little things. Because last time I promised to do something that was related to my post-mortem. That was this West of Nothing mock-up, where I take the original title of West of Loathing and just modify it that it looks like West of Nothing, because this was my internal working title for my Ludum 45 game. And I already, or almost all the time, need these little kind of eye candy illustrations. So let's have a look at the chat, and yes, people are there. And apparently I'm live now at last. Yes, the good thing is I have it all recorded, so there is half an hour of time of duration where I just keep talking to myself and having a grand old time ranting about random stuff. No, it's not that bad. So okay, so what is the program for today? Well, first I will just show you, because I, like I said in the last stream, I promised to do this little modification of the West of Loathing title, and since it's already done and I already tweeted about it, I will show it to you of how I did things. The next thing is we're going to do a little animation. Because this is one of also the little illustrations that I need when I don't have something filmed that needs to go in my Ludum Dare post-mortem, like when I'm explaining mechanics or just my thoughts and I don't have pretty much significant footage of anything, because you can't, it's not interesting to watch me 30 seconds go, while the voiceover explains something. So, and recently I showed my patrons on my Discord just 2 little variants of animations, and they picked one, and I want to show you how I did this, and most importantly, why this can be important to your games, especially if you don't want to animate something by drawing a lot of stuff to make something look bouncy and fun. I mean, of course, if you can, it's always nice, but for game jams, you just want to have some kind of the feeling of polish, where everything is very reactive and very dynamic, but with the least effort possible. And this is how I did these animations, and I will show you how to do this quickly, also by yourself. And I will do this in After Effects, but you can do this in pretty much any engine you want, as long as it has a timeline. But you can even do this when you're drawing with your hand, but of course then it's not that easy to iterate on. The point is, it's very simple, and you can steal this for all of your projects. What's your favorite place to go in Salzburg? Well, usually it's the shopping mall, because before work I need my coffee, and this is so at Starbucks. I'm a regular at Starbucks. When baristas know you by name and give you a pat on the shoulder, you know, yeah, you've probably had too much coffee. Okay, so let's get started there. And this is the wonderful West of Nothing mock-up. Oh, of course, yeah. There we go. Now you can also see what I'm seeing. Funny thing is, in the stream that never went live before, I also did this, that I forgot to switch from the full face camera to the screen. But this time at least I managed to realize it much quicker. So this is the West of Nothing mockup. Oh, I'm still having here up easing functions. So for those who don't know, West of Loathing, because this is a fun game, and when I was doing my post-mortem, or not the post-mortem, the game itself, there, view image, there we go. I realized that my game was pretty much influenced by this, and this is why I want to have this kind of mock-up also there in my post-mortem, because for myself, like I said, I wanted to have this working title of West of Nothing, because the theme was Start with Nothing. So I just wanted to modify this, but then I realized, as you can see now here, the resolution is not too good on this, and I didn't find a higher resolution. I thought, I mean, it's just a stick figure. I can draw this myself, and I did. But I'm also a very lazy person, and I'm this lazy that I don't want to get up, because when I'm sitting, I don't want to get up and get around and pick up my Wacom tablet and then set it down and connect it. This was way too much hassle for me. So I just want to show you how I did this, because I drew this there on my phone. And Lady Misleaf says everything is all right. Yes, everything is all right at long last. Okay, because I have this little app that is called Adobe Sketch, and I'm not a big fan of Adobe products, but I've been using them for 2 decades now, or even longer. So it's too hard for me to change, because I'm old and I don't like when things change. So yeah, this is why I'm stuck with Adobe. And you can see it here. I drew this whole thing there just on my phone. Let me switch back to the full camera. That I didn't have to get up and plug in my Wacom tablet. But the cool thing about this is, I mean, first of all, you can see, yeah, there are different colors. So just that I know what is on what layer, because in the end, of course, it ends up as black and white. And just to show you real quickly why this is so cool, let's make a new thing here. And let's just do a very quick drawing of, this is not good, I can't draw while looking at the mirror image. So yeah, this is just this little smiley face there. And the cool thing is you can say send to Photoshop. And I will plug in now the stylus and put it away and say, I'm not touching. And it should automatically update Photoshop, provided you're logged into your, there we go, into your Adobe Creative Cloud. And this is how I did pretty much all of the hand-drawn illustrations for my post-mortem, because I'm lazy and I could also do this at work, or when I'm waiting or sitting somewhere, I could just doodle something and work on my stuff. So as you can see, the most elaborate thing on this here is the sign. Pretty much everything else was just, yeah, not so much retraced, but just, yeah, there are some cactuses. What's the plural of cactus? Cacti over there. And yeah, very easy. The only thing that I took from the original and scaled it up was this West of Loathing type. And I just, yeah, split it up and took the N out of this one here. And then I had no thing and made this little dash there. And there you go. I mean, just for a throwaway bit, it was done in like, including my first sketches and concepts, it was half an hour or so. So this was a really fast turnaround. Okay, so this was the thing that I wanted to do on the last week's stream, but work got in the way, so this is why I had to skip a stream. But here we are, live. I really have to check now. Here we are live, and thank you so much for really taking some time out of your Sunday to watch me not click go live. Okay, so the other thing, like I said, was, where do I have After Effects? Was, there we go. Was it requirements? I think it was this one here. So let's hope that After Effects doesn't crap out, or doesn't overtake all of the RAM now and my stream starts stuttering. Oh dear. quality Adobe project, everyone. Okay, so there we go. There we go. You're going to check every 50 minutes for the whole stream now, will you? I won't. I will check every 5 minutes now, just to be sure. Okay, it still reads live. This is good. So yeah, this is just a little animation that's happening somewhere for some reason to illustrate a point there. And just to show you what I'm going to recreate for you now is this little animation there of how things pop up like this and how to get this little cute and bouncy fun thing there. If you already know, then you're free to skip. But let's make a new project. But it will all be about scaling individual axes and easing functions. And this is why I have still there the Firefox open there with the easing functions, because for those of you who haven't heard about them, it's just how an animation, how interpolation between two values behaves. Most of the time it's just linear, and this I don't like personally because it looks all the time so stiff. And with just a little bit there of easing, and yeah, just taking a little bit of more care, putting more care into your animation, you can make something that looks nice and fun and not as stiff as pretty much most of the animations that I see when you're pressed on time. Just for demonstration's sake, I put here now a keyframe here and another one there and have this animate. So this is done without any easing functions. You can see it just starts and stops, and it looks very artificial and not very nice, especially when you have a third animation or a second animation, actually a third keyframe or a second animation going on. It just jerks around like this, and I mean, this is fine if you're doing a Super Nintendo styled RPG with camera movement, but yeah, it doesn't look too reactive and too nice. And now I'm just converting all those keyframes there to soft eased keyframes there, and it looks a little bit nicer and softer, and yeah. And so this is the big thing about easing functions. There are a lot of easing functions, and it's very simple. If you just Google easing functions and then you're programming a language of choice, there are algorithms for, excuse me, pretty much any language there are, because they're ubiquitous, and like I said, I always like it nicer than just your standard lerp. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to animate this little rocket ship here, that it just plops into existence. And for this I just cut it out. Yeah, I cut it out. And the most important thing to do before anything like this is to set the origin right. In After Effects, the origin is this little crosshair thing, and this is where, of course, everything revolves around, because when I'm scaling now up and down here, everything is, of course, starts from the origin, hence the name. So for things that are anchored in some way to the ground plane or have some kind of implied contact, this is usually the point when I'm doing this little bounce animation of where I set my origin to. So in this case, of course, it would be here in the dead center of this little rocket ship, but there where this shadow thing is happening. And if I'm scaling it up and down now, everything revolves around this thing here. So let's move it a little bit down. Put the cookie down, or the rocket ship. There we go. Okay, let's check the chat. Good. No one is complaining, and I'm still live. This is good. Unicorn, because stay hydrated. We're having such a great time today now, now that I'm live. Okay, so the first thing there is, if you want to animate, how long should your animation take? And for this plopping in effect, I would say a half a second is almost too long, unless you wanted to have it some kind of weight, to feel some kind of weight. Since I'm here, my timeline is there at the frame rate of 60 frames per second. I think I want my animation to be no longer than 20 frames or so. So it's not even half a second. So I just switch the time slider to 20 frames per second. And my style of animating is, for this kind of graphical effects, is bottoms up in a sense, that I put the first keyframe at the ending of the animation. So this is where I want the thing to end up, and how it gets there and what happens before, essentially I don't care. I only want that it looks like this in this scaling, in this position when it's done. So this is why I drop my keyframe here. Okay, and how do we go from there? We do some squash and stretch. This is a tired or tried old animation technique, which means, well, animation essentially is all the time or almost around having things appear, giving them weight and some kind of life. There is this book from the Disney, good old Disney animators, that's called The Illusion of Life, because this is pretty much everything you do with animation. And squash and stretch is pretty much a subset of this. Of course, you squash and stretch something, but let me just real quickly show you what happens when I stretch it. Yeah, now it's bigger, but it also looks, well, it appears that there is more volume to this now, because it's as wide as before, but twice as high, so of course it must have more volume. And this is my trick for having animations appear plausible, is to keep the volume, the appearance of volume, that it stays the same. And if you go frame by frame with 2D animations, it's always trying to keep the volume in one way or another. I mean, it can be squashed and stretched and deformed, but the overall volume stays the same. And this is what we're going to do here. I can see in the chat that everyone is having their water when I say unicorn, which is great, because it's always great to stay hydrated. And I know from myself that I forget to drink water, so unicorn, everyone. Also helps with dry mouth. Okay, so I'm starting here now, trying to retain the volume there. Okay, so when I'm stretching this thing here, let's say I'm stretching it by 150%, I need to squash it by the same amount that it feels like it retains its volume. So 150% high, which means 75% wide. And if I play back now the animation, I mean, of course, now there's no easing functions or anything fancy going on, but it feels, or let me start just here a little bit in the middle, that it feels that it keeps more or less its volume, and this is all there is. It's a little bit like the conservation of energy when you're into physics or optics. This is with the shaders. Before that we had physically based shaders. This gets now very nerdy. If you're not up for this, you can do something else for half a minute. But with the Blinn shader, or even, I think it was even with the Phong shaders, you have two different values you can tweak for how wide the highlight is and how intense it gets. And you always have to balance this out, that those two sliders or those two values add up to one to conserve energy. Otherwise, the thing would reflect more light than it would get. And this is pretty much the same thing here happening with animation. You just want to retain the volume, to retain the energy. Wow, this was quite a detour. Okay, so we have now here our first frame of animation and our last frame of animation. But like I said, I want it to plop into existence. So I want it to appear pretty much out of nowhere. So it has to be very slender. But the thing is now, if we want to retain, of course, our volume, it needs to be infinitively tall, which of course we can't do or shouldn't do. So I'm just giving it 300%, and now it still looks okay, but since this is not the final animation, it will look all right once we start with this. Okay, so we go from here to there, but there is this little bounciness missing. If you've played games from Edmund Macmillan, such as The Binding of Isaac especially, but also with Super Meat Boy, you can see it. This animation style, this very bouncy, very fun style. And this is where I think the life comes into the animation, is by having these big changes there in the size, in the volume of the object, and the deformation is to overshoot something, because there is so much happening, it will overshoot in either direction, and this is where the fun actually lies. So let's say we want to overshoot in the other direction there. So we start here with stretch, and then we want to squash it there once we're around halfway of the entire animation. So I will just reset this there to 100 and 100, and then I will do the opposite and just squash it, and by 66% vertically, and then I stretch it out by, let's say, 175%. And let's play it back, and you can see this is very simple, and it's still all just linear interpolation. When we look at the curves there, let me show you. This is a very linear interpolation. It's just 2 keyframes or 3 keyframes, but 2 animation paths that are linearly interpolated, and it already looks passable, I would say. Okay, so like I said, with overshooting, you know what, we can overshoot it even in the other direction, but not as much. So before it hits our final destination frame, I want it to overshoot it again in the other direction, but not as much, just a little bit. So I reset it here to 100 and 100, and then just have it overshoot it again. So I'm going to stretch it by, let's say, 110%, and I'm going to squash it to 95%. So, and if we play it back now, it has, like I said, still very simple, very direct, very linear animation curves, but already has this little bounciness to it. And the icing on the cake now is those easing functions. And make this here a bit bigger. And with After Effects, you just select your keyframes, and then you can select or choose some kind of interpolation. And the easing, well, we have first to think where it makes sense that something slowly comes to a rest and then goes from there. So essentially it would be the peaks and the troughs there in our animation curve. So of course, when it comes down and really squashes down, it goes out of it again. So this is where I will change the animation to this little Bezier curve there. So we have now this little peak there. Let's have a look at the chat. Something is going on there. I think you can do it with scale. Don't quote me though. Yes, you can do it with scale, but I don't know what else people are talking. Oh, Unity, of course. I think you can do it with Unity. The problem with Unity that I've noticed is that there's no easy way where you can specify or at least move around the origin point. So you needed to have some kind of parenting hierarchy where you move the parent object or scale the parent object, and in the hierarchy the child object is where you can move the sprite up and down. I think you have to do something like this, because I tried this and it wasn't easy, and then for my little game I gave up on this quite way. Or of course you can animate the position also, but yeah, this is not something you want to do. Okay, so this was the first peak, and now we are here at the second peak, so I will also smooth this one here. And once we are at the final stop, of course, we also want to have it to arrive at this with a ease. This makes sense. So let's have a look at this, and it looks even nicer. And now the icing on the cake is once, like I said, the first frame is that we are extremely tall. It doesn't make sense if the curve starts too soft. Let me show you if I start the curve here now very soft. And it doesn't show really that much. So let me stretch out there in the animation there over 1 second. It feels a little bit off when it has this soft plateau there on the top. So essentially we do it the opposite. Instead of coming in from a very soft peak, we do the opposite, and we just say, yeah, it comes in from pretty much, it comes down from infinity like a graph, right? And also on the other axis like so. And now it just appears like it's coming, yeah, from a different dimension, haha, essentially. But let me speed it up again so that this makes more sense, because right now I'm not quite happy with the animation curves, how they look. But this could be due to this little squashing that I did, so at 20 frames there. Okay, now you can see my problem that I'm having here is that this doesn't look like some kind of bell curve, Gaussian bell curve anymore. So instead, I am just tweaking this little weight here of the tangents. You don't want it to overlap here or cross the curve, the graph itself, because then you end up with something of an S curve, and then you get the same problem that you got an ease from the start and ease towards the end. So if I just make it here, this tangent there, that it is almost on the graph before crossing it, I think this gives us the nicest plateau there. So maybe I can pull this back to 1 frame, that it looks more like a bell curve, something like this. Then of course I need to tweak this, that it doesn't overlap, and I think I'm happy with how it looks. When you're doing animations, or even when you're not doing animations and don't know how a curve looks right or not, in my experience, it's especially for organic stuff or realistic stuff, pretty much everything has some kind of curve to it. There's no linear animation whatsoever, unless you're doing really very stylized animations or mechanical animations, but even then there's always this little kind of build up and yeah, momentum that's happening. And the softer, the smoother the curves are, of course, the more fluency you will have in animations. There's one exception to this, that is speed changes when something hits a wall and bounces back, because it's like the proverbial just bounces off a wall or something. This is where animation, you don't have any kind of smoothing or easing. For example, I once had, when I was still in college and doing this animation, and I was just cleaning up an animation, there was I think, yeah, a piece of debris of some explosion. That was animating it very elaborately myself, and this other animator did it for the other debris, but they had it hit the ground and then bump up again. And I was cleaning up the animation. I thought I was just seeing all those curves, and then of course I also cleaned up the curves. And then the animation was not like this, where it just bump, 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 but instead it just went like smoothly like this and then curled for some reason. And yeah, this is why I don't want to apply smoothing without having a look at the animation. So I've been talking too much, so let's have a look at the animation. And this is how it looks like. But you know what, let's start there in the middle where the rocket is not there already and have it appear out of thin air. And I think the animation is still a little bit too slow, so I will speed it up. If you hear some kind of strange vibrating sound, it's our washing machine that's just going haywire in the other room. We closed 2 doors, but the good old washing machine never shuts up. Okay, so this is, I think I'm happy with this now. I mean, there might be some kind of dropped frames there. But yeah, but I think this looks good. And once you have this, you can see this little rocket ship there has a lot of character now and animation without having to do any kind of redrawing stuff or doing or animating it in another way that you would do manually. No, it's just scaling. You can move it around while it does this. You don't need even to have it fade in because of this very stretched starting frame there. It doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere or just plopping up there. No, instead your lampshade hanging, as we say, where you really emphasize that it's just appearing out of thin air by giving it this little bouncy animation. And yeah, the good thing about this is if you don't need to do it this pronounced, but you can also, if I start here just 2 frames before and I reset it at 100 and 100 then, and just scale down here this thing in between, that it's not that big. And this okay, I extend now here the rocket before. This now has a little kind of, it's like a notification or if you click something, and it also works, as you can see, very well for this, just to have some kind of reaction that has a lot of character but very little effort put into it, but still doesn't look like you put in just like we did now 5 minutes. So yeah, this is like I said, especially for some kind of fun, bouncy, agitated dialogue boxes that or buttons or anything. And if you make this shorter and put a beat under it, you can even have a little meme there, or have everything react to the beat of of your background music, which I think the first game that I noticed that did this was New Super Mario Bros. On the DS. Was it the DS? I think so. Where the flowers would dance in rhythm with the background music, which was very cute. So yeah, but this is my go-to for not a lot of effort, but a lot of character, to just do some kind of animation that looks like you put a lot in. But the good thing about this is, of course, you can always put in more effort if you want. You can have some kind of particles when something appears that just has a little bit of sparkle there, or even camera shake if you're crazy, or just combine it with some manual animation that you drew, maybe just a couple of frames when something appears, and then you can squash and stretch it and blend the animation frames together, and then you get something that is very expressive with very little effort. So I hope this was useful to you. Let's have a look at the chat. And unicorn, ladies and gentlemen, and unicorn. Wow, it really shows that I had 2 coffees, 2 lattes before this. So if I was going too fast, I'm sorry. What do you do as a job, by the way? Have been watching for some time, but I'm kinda retarded. Oh, don't say retarded. Actually, my job has nothing to do with video games. Most of the time I work as a digital colorist, which means I make video footage look pretty and give it this cool look. It's really hard trying to explain what a digital colorist is, but thanks to Instagram, it's like applying filters. But with Instagram, you just pick one filter and say, yeah, this looks nicer. No, this looks nicer. Oh, let's go with the blue one again. And color grading or developing looks is pretty much like this, but it's very tailored to the situation, very tailored to the look, what the director wants, what the cinematographer has in mind, what is there in the scene. But most of the time, at least since I'm working a lot with TV and web, it's getting crappy footage and trying to make it look that it works really great with good cameras that we have, and someone has some phone camera or a GoPro. Everything has to go together and doesn't be too jarring. Because when you watch something, the last thing you want your audience to think is, why does this look different than the other thing? Or why is her face green and his face is red? No, you want them to stay in the story. And also have the colors help you evoke emotions with the audience. It's a bit like music. You don't really notice it when something has a certain color, but it really sets the tone and the mood. And this is what I do for a living, but I did so many things. My background is from visual effects. I worked on some medium big films 10 years ago as an intern, so no big shots, literally no big shots. But yeah, I did a work of 3D graphics and animation, and now that I'm doing YouTube, I'm just putting everything together and making games, because I've always wanted to make games since the first time I got a Game Boy, and I thought, oh my god, how do you make something like this? And this is my journey in a nutshell. He controls spaceships. Yeah, this is also what I do. Essentially, it looks like a spaceship because I'm sitting with color grading. I'm sitting in a dark room, have this whole huge panel in front of me with glowing buttons and this huge screen and readouts of various scopes, and it looks very futuristic. But in the end, it's just I'm looking at colors and trying to make things look nice. Essentially, there was a game in LD45 that had nice speed animations. 45. Oh, I beat animations. Probably, but I can't recall any of it. Looks like you set up a trap of me, like that I did some animations, or that your game had a lot of animations that I completely forgotten about it, and now I just walked straight into this trap. So I'm sorry. Professional polisher, yes, that's me. I can't help it. About yeah, this is also one interesting thing about this kind of polishing, where it just put on those very small polishing touches that you can do really fast and have a great visual or have a great production value in the sense. There was this talk by Ashley Gwinnell at the Game Dev Days Graz, who also does a lot of game jam games, and his talk was all about those little polishing touches you can put on things like squash and stretch, but also like subtle camera shake and yeah, how to handle controller input that it feels really snappy with just a little bit of momentum and so on. Yeah, I think I'm very sure that he's also on Twitter, so you might if you ask him, there might be still the slides somewhere of this talk, because this was I thought this was very interesting. It was like half an hour of all those little game feel things that once you have a game, that even if it's just a couple of blocks moving around, it still feels like a fun game without a lot of effort. And if you've ever played Thomas Was Alone by Mike Bethel, I think he really pulled it off magnificently, because it was just a bunch of blocks, but with the narration and this little squashy, stretchy animation and everything, it really came together that you really felt a lot about this stupid rectangle there that was just programmer art, but imbued with such character, like through little animation and narration, which it's really great. Okay, let's see. I should probably follow him on Twitter since I finally got it. For some reason, YouTube thought that this was an inappropriate comment, so I unhid it, which means I revealed it properly. Okay, so let's get back to getting busy. So I've did this now 2 times, so I'm done with it. But yeah, there was one point I wanted to make now that I closed this animation. This might not my best move right now. Either way, what I wanted to say was that everything is all about contrasts with games, but not just visual contrasts. But like with the animation, you start strong and then go softer again. And you can see this. I really thought about this a while ago, and yet everything is about balancing things right. It's like a fractal of contrasts and balancing right. Like I said, now here this was this little animation, but of course you need to have contrast between background and foreground. For example, if you're developing a platformer and you got a very busy background there, of course it's hard for people to judge, is this a platform, is it not, can I jump on it? And then things, when you have players second guessing what is a background and what is a platform, yeah, then you're really making things harder on yourself and for them to enjoy the game. So it's about contrast in the visuals. Then of course it's about contrast in sound and pacing. Of course you don't want your music not to be louder than very important sound effects. You want to have a hierarchy of what sound effect is very important. For example, the player getting hit, and what sound effect is not important. Let's say bullets dropping on the third enemy from the right, or something like this. And of course, there's contrast in pacing, gameplay, and narration. If everything is just full-on action all the time, it gets tiring, it gets exhausting. And you also want in your narrative to have this kind of slow, once you have a peak and then it goes back to a trough and then picks up more speed again and so on. And I've realized this, it's all the way, all around. One thing I haven't figured out a clever simulate to this is how to have contrast in programming. Do you want to have a lot of code that doesn't make any sense, but then you start documenting stuff and then it makes sense again, and then there's just this huge dense code block that's overly optimized? I don't know. My metaphor doesn't work for the nitty-gritty of code implementation. But I thought this was really interesting, because I was playing, right now I'm playing Silent Hill, the old Silent Hill for the PS1, because I was listening to a podcast, and after half the podcast they said, okay, and now there be spoilers, but pretty much everyone should have played this game already. And I thought, oh shit, I really should play it seriously this time. And I started and have this big walkthrough, because I don't like games that are spooky and creepy, because I'm easily spooked, as I said. But with a walkthrough it's fine, where it says, then you enter the room and get ambushed by 3 enemies. And I think, okay, good, At least I know. And I noticed there is a lot of interesting stuff going on in a game that's 20 years old, I think. When came it out? It came out in 1999, I think. And with audio, also where this got this momentum going on and this little roller coaster there. There's a lot of interesting stuff that Silent Hill did. And of course, there's a lot of horrid stuff that Silent Hill did, mainly camera and controls. Man, the biggest enemy in this game is the camera. And there's this one scene which I think is exemplary for how things have changed in the last 20 years of game dev, is where you are in a lighthouse. And the camera is straight on from top, where you can see those stairs going up, winding up the lighthouse. And you see it really from the top. And your character, you're supposed to just walk up the steps. And with you, the camera pulls back up, revealing more of the steps of the lighthouse. And it's a very cinematic and very cool shot. The problem is, in today's games, you would just press up, and then your character would keep walking up the stairs. Not so with Silent Hill. It got tank controls. I mean, you can use the analog stick, but it's really hard to steer that guy. So instead of having this very cinematic shot of you walking up slowly the steps, it's like bumping into the wall, turning on the spot, going back, no, wrong direction, going up, and the camera just keeps jerking back and forth, and it ruins the whole thing. So yeah, why am I talking about this? I don't know, I just found it hilarious. Okay, so we're still here after 41 minutes of proper streaming. Again, I'm really sorry. And the last thing that I want to do for today, let's have a look here at the script, is this line here that I highlighted is I dusted the cobwebs off the Unity icon, because I haven't used Unity in over a year or something like this. And again, I want to have this as a kind of visual joke. And I want to share with you now live of how my ways are of, my workflow is of going from line of text in the script to finished animation, or at least somewhat finished animation. So my concept for this line is to dust off the cobwebs of the icon. At first I thought, I just take my phone, draw the Unity icon, and then just swipe it across some spider webs that I find somewhere, and then just film it where I just wipe it off. But for two reasons I don't want to do this. Reason number one is you probably can't get it right, and then you have to find some more spider webs to destroy, and then the spiders grow angry at you, and they are out for revenge and wait till you sleep to get back at you. Yeah, and the other thing is, of course, it's a little bit ugly and icky when you do this. And yeah, I don't know if I'm too comfortable with doing this a couple of times. And also, like I said, you're destroying the livelihood, or the working places, at least, of some spiders, and this is not nice. So instead, my other idea was to have the Unity icon somewhere on screen, that we are zoomed up. Let me just do a reenactment of this, or a visualization. Like so, we're zoomed in there, but there's all this huge dust on top of this Unity icon, and there are cobwebs there. And then with my mouse, I pick from a cleaning program. They usually have these icons with some kind of broom or brush there. Then just pick the broom there and just dust it off, and then I click it. And this is the stupid idea that I have for this. And I think this is what we're going to animate now, or at least get started. So if there are no objections, then we can get started. I'm sorry this is a little bit late for Halloween, the spooky stuff, but I think we shall be all right. Okay, so first I need all those individual elements, and of course we need to do this in Photoshop, because like I said, I'm horribly dependent on Photoshop and Adobe in general, and Adobe knows this, and we have this loving relationship of junkie and his supplier. So there we go. Okay, so but for starting, of course, I need to have some kind of assets, and this is the Unity icon. And look at this. This is the icon of the cleaner. And I really want to get the Unity icon first and the CCleaner icon to do this kind of reenactment. Okay, so how do we get the icon out of this? There is this one program, I think it's called Resource Hacker or something like this, or Res Hack or Res something. But yeah, I'm not too happy with this because it takes a little bit too long to find what you want. But since I'm doing a lot of icons, because man, when I first saw icons in a Windows 3.11 operating system, I thought, I want to draw some icons myself. And actually, drawing icons was the first thing that I started with, kind of pixel graphics. And I never had a program to do icons for years. So when I first started with anything where I could create icons, because first I went to Microsoft Paintbrush and just saved my images with the extension of .ico, which of course didn't work. But when I got something like this that fell off the truck from somewhere, I just was completely into making icons, and this has persisted to this day. This is why, of course, I have a program where you can make icons with. And good thing is that it also opens exe files. So let's say, yeah, just open this one in restricted mode because we don't want to make changes to the exe file. And God forbid, we just need the icon there. And from this, I think I can just export it. I think open icon. There we go. Now I can just say export as PNG with transparency, of course, and then I have the perfect icon ready. I don't need to have to make some kind of screenshots and then retrace everything. So yeah. So this goes to setups VFX. This is my setup there. I think I've showed it the last time of how I set up my folder structures for projects, but it's always been like this, and I preface it here, as you can see, with numbers that they always sort the right way. I mean, this appears to be like a workaround, like line numbers in BASIC on the Commodore 64, but yeah, it's the only reliable way to have this across platforms, that everything, if you just sort it by name, you're good. So this one goes to VFX. It's not just a visual effect, but also a motion graphic, but I don't want to have two different folders for this, so let's just call it Unity Cobwebs. There we go. And inside there, I make an image sources file where everything goes. And this is just cleaner icon. There we go. And let's do the same thing there with the Unity icon. What's not so helpful is that if I just drop there the Unity icon in there, or at least even the alias, or what's it called, the shortcut to the Unity icon, it doesn't work. So I really need to navigate to it manually. There we go, Unity editor, Unity, there we go, open icon, and there I can do the same. Cool. Where? Export as PNG with transparency, and again we're here in the Unity folder, so this is not helpful. This is why it's always good to have folders you use regularly. Like here, all my Ludum Dare post-mortems that I'm currently working on since I set up the computer are in my quick access things. So Unity Cobwebs, there we go, Unity icon. Cool, okay. Let's have a look at the chat. Just wave your hand over the phone and Photoshop the web in. Yeah, maybe, but then, as you know, I'm all about perfectionism. So then, of course, I need to rotoscope my fingers out. And if I'm doing a green screen from the phone, it will also illuminate my fingers from below. And in the end, it's much faster doing it like this, I think. But as always with me, when I'm trying to make things really quick, just get it done with, and then realize, if I put in a little bit more effort, it will be even cooler. And if I put in a lot more effort, it will be a lot cooler. And then you end up with a documentary about participating in a game jam that takes you over a year now. So yeah, beware, kids, beware. Of course, words and error messages. Hope that wasn't offensive. Your reaction to software crashes still entertains me. Yeah, if you don't follow me on Twitter, yeah, I was having a minor meltdown with Adobe products recently because Premiere kept crashing and I lost a lot of work because I was a dumbass and didn't save regularly. So nowadays, we all are used to things saving automatically and checkpoints in games, and stuff gets synced to the cloud. But with Premiere, if you don't set up autosave, which you don't, because when it starts saving every 5 minutes and you're in the middle of something and then it saves and you get crazy, so you switch it off and then it crashes after 2 hours of work because you didn't save. And yeah, I had a little Twitter meltdown, but it's all good. It's all good. I'm fine. I'm over it. I'm over it. Okay, so I got everything now that I need. West of nothing. No, we're in the wrong folder there. Setups VFX and bring it over to Photoshop. Because, like I said, I want now to be able to pull this little, is it a broom? I think it's like a small broom there, from this icon. So I need, of course, now to separate this there in Photoshop, that I can animate it in After Effects individually of each other. So I will just make a new layer of this, and then we're going to start separating those two. For this, I take my trusty lasso tool there, because this always works. Oh man, this was a wrong click, so I have to clean this up later again. And yeah, with rotoscoping, it's an art by itself. I did this, like I mentioned before, I was working in visual effects, and there I did a lot of rotoscoping. So the thing is, the art to it is like this one here. This pixel there is around 50% the color of one side and 50% the color of the other side. So the line has to go straight through. And a little bit into this one here. And the same thing actually here, but this one a little bit more. And so in the end, that the percentage, when you imagine that this little edge of this pixel there, it's fully blue and this one is fully orange, and then you just average it together, that it produces this color of the pixel. And yeah, and once you are in this mindset, man, you're really down the rabbit hole. So this is why when I'm starting to do some cutouts of something, I really have to restrain myself that I'm not overthinking things. So I'm just making this here very, for my terms at least, very sketchy. There's even a little drop shadow on the brush, but maybe on the broom, but maybe I think we can keep it. But yeah, this is all good. So let's cut this out and paste it on a new layer, but in the same spot. By the way, this is very helpful in After Effects in Photoshop, and this is paste special. Of course, when I'm zoomed in, I can't use the menus. Edit paste special, there we go, and paste in place. And yeah, still there. So paste in place, and this is why I set a shortcut for this, because I use this constantly where you just want to move something to a different layer. Princess layer. Has anyone made this joke? Somebody should. Okay, so cool. Now we need to reconstruct the remaining C there. And I think this is going to be a little bit more of a project, but it's all good. It doesn't have to be perfect. So yeah, let's make a new background, just that we can see better and are not distracted by this checkerboard there. And usually I try to find out what font was used for something, but apparently there was no font used. So I think it's just two circles, right? How hard can this be? It's just two circles. So let's start there with a new circle. That I know where to start there, drawing my new circle. I start there with guide layers like this, and I think I just made an adjustment layer there. And what do I want? No pixels. I want a new shape for starters. Oh, of course, yeah, sorry, I just deleted the layer that I wanted to. Okay, so I make a new shape, and let's fill it with red, or instead, you know what? Let's not fill it. Let's just contour it with white so that I know that I'm doing things correctly. And now let's just draw this circle there. And congratulations, the designers of the icons did things correctly, because it's a real circle there. And it's a perfect circle. But I'm having here now problems estimating where the circle has its apex there. So I think this might work out here. Okay, so it's not completely round inside there, or I was just doing things incorrectly. Yeah. Could be something like this. So let's try it from this side again. Yeah, it's not working out. Apparently it's not working out like I had hoped it would. Okay, maybe I can nudge it that it looks almost correct. But I think this should be good if we do it like this now. Okay, cool. So now I have my two circles which I can just use as guides. And have this one circle here, and then can minus. Oh, of course. Now I'm zooming. Okay. Since I won't be using or I don't need those elements there individually as shapes, which means that I can rescale them without loss of quality because internally they are still vector graphics. Instead, you know what? I turn them over into pixel graphics that I can just do cutouts of them. So let's fill this one up here with black and not a stroke. Or you know what? I can even copy the shape there in the channel. Where is it? It's a path. So I just can copy the path there and paste it into this shape here. And when we have here a closer look at this icon here where it shows, yeah, I want to cut out the inside circle of the outside circle. So which is what I did. So let's just fill it up with red. This red here, and turn off the stroke. Cool, looks completely different than what we had before, but this is fine because you can see probably here there is some kind of reflection there going on. So it's like a semicircle there for the reflection and also one here for the drop shadow. So I think I will let go of this implied drop shadow there from the broom. So I think I will leave it out because I don't know how to handle this once in the animation we pick the broom from the icon there. So what I will do now is just put this one here behind, because now I have a easier time there getting the right color. So let's pick, not currently, a current sample all layers. When you're drawing, sometimes you only want to sample, of course, the layer that you are on. So I'm just picking the red from down here, from here, because there I think this is the most neutral red it has. So let's take this red then. Is it this red? Seriously? No, this can't be. This looks too saturated. I know my way around colors. Yeah, this looks to be correct. But we still here got, of course, the remaining aliasing pixels there of the broom, which I will take care of. Yeah, maybe we should do this now. So I select now the layer, the original layer there. And, you know what, I could just use here the eraser, but then the things will be gone. And maybe I need something back sometime, or I don't want to overshoot it. Essentially, I want to retain the options that I can restore what I deleted. And instead of using the eraser now, I'm just using a mask, which is the same thing as an alpha channel, but you can see it here. So everything that is white, of course, remains opaque, and everything that you draw with black is transparent. And I will try now to subtly cut this out very softly, that I'm just using what I have to and not anything else. But there's still a little bit of aliasing going on. But yeah, this is how much of a perfectionist I am. For this little bit where I'm just talking 2 seconds of dusting the cobwebs off something, I can't leave it at being a proverbial thing. No, I'm here for probably an hour or even longer, and just trying to make this little joke. But I think this is what my postmortems are usually about. So there's this drop shadow going on down below here. I'm not quite sure how to do things there, but I think the best way would be just to get rid of it. But for now, I just keep it for now, because we've got more pressing matters at our hands. So, okay, how to get now this color here in between right. One thing is that we could try is, you know what, I'm going to duplicate the layer now that we had, just to be sure, and then apply the alpha to it. So everything now is applied. but I still got the original just in case. And now what I'm going to do is use Photoshop's tools, use essentially Adobe's marketing. That is, I'm using all the neat new functions that Photoshop can. Like an example, I use fill and say content aware fill. And then it should pick the surrounding pixels and interpolate essentially what's in between them, which works okay-ish, but not for this thing down here. So you know what, I will cut it out. Also that it doesn't produce any kind of weird artifacts there. And then I will again try to say fill here and see what the content aware algorithm comes up with, and it looks a little bit better. And I think I can live with this for now. Benjamin Edward says, looks like I was 20 minutes late, but I'm here now. Yeah, I was 40 minutes late. Thank you, Frank. Well, I was here on time. I was also streaming on time, but not live streaming. So dumbest move as always. So okay, to get this thing here, I will switch over back to a brush, a very soft, very large brush, and then just brush it off in a sense. No, this is wrong. This is wrong. The hardness I turned down to 0%, and it's a very soft brush, and this is still not, doesn't look right. I should pick the color from up here and then from up there, and maybe then I will do some kind of blurring, because the thing is, it might look okay from this size, but let me show you. If I just pull up a new window of this same image and make it much smaller, and then you can it's easier to spot when things are smaller. You can spot when colors are not spot on. Haha. Man, my dad jokes are getting worse today. Okay, so I will take care now of the rest here, and will completely ignore this little drop shadow there. Where am I? Okay, good. So good. And then right now I'm just interested there in getting the colors right, and not so much of getting the shape right, because I can still clean up the shape when I'm done with this one here. So apparently there was some kind of gradient going on between this one here and this lower thing here. You know what? Let's use this to our advantage. So I pick a color from the top and the other color here from the bottom. Make a new layer, and there I will just select the transparency from the layer that's below and just do a little gradient. This was the wrong direction. Like, was this the right one? Apparently. Apparently it was. So this, really? This looks wrong, but with colors, especially when there are these little fluctuations there. So I will just pick, yeah, this is the right color. This was the right color. So apparently this is the gradient that's happening there. Cool. Okay, so but of course I don't need it for the whole thing, but just the bits that where it's missing, of course. So now I'm pretty safe that I can just delete there with a, no, this was too strong. This was too strong with the eraser. So hardness 0, size, let's say, yeah, this looks about right. And down here, yeah, and now this looks a lot better. Also here, I'm also checking here in the small thing, but it's still a little bit too sharp, because apparently it was too strong what I did. So you know what? Now I have this selection here, which is good, and now we'll do this with again here with the gradient. Wrong direction, also wrong. What's I didn't pick the correct color on one end. Of course. No. Yes. Okay, so this looks a lot better. So, but the C shape is not there anymore, of course. So, because of course it has to remain, has to keep this shape, and then of course with anything that was left from this. But we got our nice little circle here, and I use this one here as my reference for my additions that I made. And I will delete everything that lies outside this here. I mean, of course I could just hit the delete button, But now we got this beautiful, beautiful sea. And I'm just starting to notice that there was some kind of beveling effect going on there. Here you can see it there on the sides. Well, this is a huge brush. There we go. This little beveling effect there on the sides. I will try now if I can... You know what? I will duplicate this shape here. So it is on 2 layers. And the thing is, I want only the bevel to show, not the shape itself. And you can do this. There are two in Photoshop. There are these 2 things, that opacity and fill, and I thought they are pretty much the same thing, because when you turn down the fill, well, it fades out, and when you turn down the opacity, it fades out. But the thing is, if you're using some kind of layer effects, which I think the original designers used there, if you turn down the fill, only this effect remains. So if I'm starting now with a beveling effect there, where is it? Bevel and emboss, there we go. Then only this effect shows. And then of course I can try to hide the points of transition. So let's just keep the default settings here and observe how they did it there in the original. So I think the light is coming from the top, and they have a very soft bevel downwards. Okay, so let's recreate this. I'm putting the light here to the top, something like this. Yeah, and this almost looks right. The size is a little bit too strong now. But overall, this could work. Now here with the multiply, why don't I see it? Is it too soft? I can't see this thing here. Let's pick normal, and let's pick let's say blue, just so that I see what's happening here. But of course, this whole thing is on a semi-dome, and I'm so much, where's my mouse? There we go. The altitude is too small. So let's put it at 32 or 35. Yeah, there we go. This is where the black needs to go. Of course, not that strong. Just a little bit like this. Soften it also a little bit. Maybe this was too strong softened. And I think we almost recreated this original effect. And like before, I'm using a layer mask and mask out the things where I don't need this. So let's add a new mask where right now everything is visible, and now I switch it over to nothing is visible, and paint in with white preferably this little bevel effect there. And I can see you know what my big problem is, that the beveling happens there also, not just where I want it to happen, but also of course it treats this alpha channel as the source pixels. So you know what? I need to do things differently. I need to put this into a group. Jesus. And then with the group, inside this group, there lies this effect there. And the group itself has this layer mask. And now I can paint this one in here and out. There's a lot of effort for this little thing that I want to do, but it works. Surprisingly, it works exactly like I want it to work. And this, ladies, gentlemen, and unicorns, is the very easy way of separating one item from another. You know what? Let's save this whole thing here. Let's save it under Cleaner Icon Separated version 1. Crack your knuckles. And this is the sea. We also, of course, got here this little drop shadow, which, you know what? I can try to apply it onto this as well. Let's say drop shadow. There we go. And there's the bevel. Of course, yeah, I will just deactivate the bevel for now, that only we can see how far the drop shadow is. And I'm not using the global light here, because when I'm turning this knob here, the angle here, then it will also change the light direction in our bevel, and I don't want this. So I'm just making it a little bit bigger here and say okay for now. and just double check how the original looks. And yeah, it's similar. It's similar actually. It doesn't look too bad. It's just a bit too strong here. But instead of taking it away on the top, I just added from our fake one. And now, of course, on top lies here the brush. This is nice, but as soon as we pick the brush away, I don't need, by the way, I can delete all the other things. Oh, you know what? I won't delete anything now. I just save it and keep it. Maybe I need it later. But of course, when we have the brush, it still has this little this little aliasing effect there where it was before, and also is missing a little bit of drop shadow again, just like before. So we pretty much do the same thing. I turn down the fill, fill, oh dear, and add this drop shadow, just a little bit, so that it's like so. Stick it into a group and add a mask to the group and turn it invisible. And now I just paint over it where I need it, as before. So it doesn't make a lot of sense that there's a drop shadow also on the side where the light is. So I just delete it again. Now we have this little blob there with where it's transitioning, and this is a little bit fiddly, but maybe I can blend it just right that it's not such a sore thing. And now soften it a bit there. I think this. Well, no, you know what, this. I don't like this. But instead of trying to match it, I will cut it out from the original, from the source there. Maybe a little bit more even. Like this. And only use our fake new drop shadow there. Hope I didn't lose you already. Okay, so maybe this was too strong down here. Again. Yeah. You know what? I don't hate it. I don't hate it. So just a little bit, So, but the good thing is now that we got the broom separated from the sea. So I will save this now and save this broom here individually as a PNG file. I just call it cleaner broom and just save the sea we did before without the broom. There we go. Save it as cleaner sea. And let's have a look at the chat if anyone is still around or everyone has already left. If you ever spend less than half an hour on a second of video, will know something is wrong and send help. Yeah, thank you. A lot of effort goes into there. But the good thing is the Unity icon I can use as is. So let's head over to After Effects and start animating this thing here. So I make a new composition and my setup is always full HD, that's 1920 by 1080 at a frame rate of 60 frames per second, and the duration, let's start with 10 seconds, and the background color, yeah, let's keep it as gray for now. Wrong. Let's say fit to screen. Okay, and let's import our assets. Thanks for nothing. Oh, this is the wrong folder. There we go, VFX, Unity Cobwebs, Cleaner Broom. There we got the cleaner icon, and now I import source. The Unity icon. So if I just drop it there, now we have the Unity icon and the cleaner icon, but like so. Cool, this works. I just have to be sure that when I'm moving it around that I always select either that I select either layer so that both are moving concurrently, or that I just parent them together. But yeah, for now I just remember to move them both. So now for the framing, it should look like a desktop, right? So I mean, my desktop background, as you can see, is the blandest gray there is, because as I've mentioned multiple times now, I'm a colorist, and when there are funny colors in the background, and especially when you're trying to get really the tones right, and it's very minuscule changes that you're making. If you have a colorful background and there's a glare from one of the monitors giving you a wrong baseline of what bright light is, yeah. Point is, I always use gray, that it's not distracting, but it may be a little bit too boring on the background there. But yeah, my problem is that it doesn't look like a desktop background, right? So let's get back there. And for one thing, I think what's throwing me off is that the gray is just too bright. So my background gray is like this. But now the question is, can you read the Unity icon well against this kind of gray? Maybe make it a little bit brighter. Maybe like so. Okay, and to make it appear that this is, of course, a desktop thing, everything needs these little labels, of course, as we have here. And of course, I can just put in a text and have it be done with that. Or of course, I can make sure that it's the right font and the right size of font. And just to do this, I take a screenshot of these two here. Just save directly as my reference, that I know how big the text needs to be. So I just cut it out and paste it there, and I make a new folder that I call images img ref, where I put all my reference images. Cool, there we go. And now, assuming that this is the same size, so I just scale it up there. And when you want to make sure, for example, as I want to make now, that the size is exactly the same of two things, there's my trick of doing things. For one thing is to get 1 point correct, and then just scale it up starting from this point there. But how can I make sure that it is correct? You know, of course, just for starters, turn down the transparency to 50%, and I will just make sure that this one point of the edge up here is lining up, and it kind of is. And now I pick the origin, if you recall from before, put it there on the same spot. And now I can just scale it up and down until it has the same size that I want. But the problem is that if you're using this kind of 50% transparency, it's not quite easy to tell if you're spot on or not. And for this, I just this was scale, sorry. I turn up the opacity to 100%, but here comes the trick, the blending mode from normal to difference. This I use a lot. And then, of course, you can see when there is black, there is no difference between the layer that's on top and the layer on the bottom. So when I'm scaling this up and down, it's much easier to discern where things should land. So it's at 213%, but almost got the spacing correct of the cleaner icon there. So let's put it there. And there we go. You can see here, of course, now the drop shadow of the broom is peeking through, because, of course, there's a difference to the original icon. So this was my reference now for the placement, that it matches the grid that I have on my desktop. And now let's go for the icon name. I will pick now the CCleaner icon here for reasons that there's just more text that I can make sure that it lines up better. So I just call it CCleaner64.exe dash. So yeah, the font was the last one I used, which was my own font, Part-Time Profit. But my assumption is that this must be MS Segway or MS UI or something. Oh, look at this. It starts with, when I enter MS there, first thing that comes up is Comic Sans. So yeah, no surprise that people are constantly picking it. So was it not Comic Sans, Skill, Liberation, No2, Source? Wasn't there Microsoft UI or Noto? I think it wasn't Noto. Noto Source Regular. Yeah, let's try this and see how it lines up. If I just position it correctly, and I think it is this font for most of the part, right? So just a little bit bigger, but the kerning is not correct, so let's try to get the kerning smaller and see if it lines up. And I think we're almost there. And you know what? You rarely hear me say this. I think this is good enough. But it still got a little bit of, it still looks a bit too clean. And for this, I might want to add a drop shadow to the text as well. I think I might want to do this. Let's have a look here, because it doesn't have one, but it appears because of this LCD sharpening. It appears that it's, yeah, I needed it to stand out a little bit more from the ground, right? What, good enough? Yes, but let me add good enough for now. So nobody knows whether or not I will get back to this later on. So, okay, so let's add a drop shadow effect. And with After Effects, this one is located under Effects. And for some reason, it's Effects and Perspective. There we go, and there it is, drop shadow. And it's the same, oh god, where we are. And it looks a little bit better, but the shadow is, of course, is always too hard and too far distanced. So I think this one looks like a desktop icon now that we're really zoomed in on some kind of retina display. So I think this should work. So okay, cool. Let's call this just C Cleaner, maybe without the typo, and center it under the icon. This is good. And do the same thing here. No, just duplicate this and move it up for Unity. Where does it need to go? Oh, was almost right. Unity. Almost, but not quite. Look at this. Almost a perfect match. Wonderful. This is now our fake desktop. The next thing that I need, of course, would be the cobwebs for one thing, but that I can move now these icons with everything that goes along with them, not individually, as a whole, I meant to say. I can create a new null object. It's a wonderful object that is just nothing. It's pretty much an empty game object in Unity, essentially. And I parent everything to this object there. And when I move my null around, everything else moves with it. Isn't this wonderful? And if I had been clever, I would have positioned my null somewhere between those, but for now I think this is good. So let's position it up here, because of course cobwebs are most likely to be found in the corners of somewhere. So just maybe use it like this, that I have the Unity icon here in the corner and there's some kind of cobweb and dust and yeah, dirt particles, something like this scattered around. And yeah, I think the next thing that I need now would be a mouse pointer. And since, oh, of course, I just hit Control S, and of course I didn't save it before, so let's save it, of course. Unity cobwebs version 0. I always keep my versions manually. Yeah. Okay, mouse pointer, and I think I have this one because I used it before. Just need to find it, and I will, since I'm try to be more organized, when I'm using two assets, one that I used in a different shot before, I don't reference it, I really copy it over, because most of the times it's harder to find something in 20 years or however long, maybe in 2 years even. It's harder to find something that was referenced in a different folder than to sacrifice the hard disk space to just copy it and have, of course, something, a duplicate. So there was DOS Spinner, Frankenstein, theme voting, I think there. Image sources, yeah, there I used this one here. Wonderful. I got a mouse pointer there, and I think I even extracted it from the Windows icons. This is great. So Unity cobwebs, image sources, there goes the mouse pointer. Has it the right size? Does this make sense? This looks plausible. Yes, yes it does. And the mouse also, you know what, I feel that it needs a drop shadow, but no, not this drop shadow. It must be much softer. and much more transparent like this, so that it's just, yeah, it feels right that, yeah, the mouse is essentially just hovering a little bit across it, but of course it doesn't need to look overly fake because it is. So okay, now for the storyboard, what's happening before I'm starting with the cobwebs there is that the mouse moves in, lingers there for a moment, and then picks the broom here, maybe there on top, and just hovers over it and puts it back, and then clicks the Unity icon. I think this is our animation. So there's one thing where I can save a lot of time for this kind of animation, because I used to do this manually, set keyframes, and then how long would it take me to move the mouse to go up there and so on. The cool thing with After Effects is there exists something that is called, let me zoom in, motion sketch, which essentially just records your mouse movements when you're dragging things around. And this is exactly what I'm going to do now. I just say we want the wireframe in the background, and when I say start capture, I'm just moving this around. Then you can see the timeline in the bottom there moving. And now I have everything as keyframes. So sorry for stopping to talk in between, but let's have a look at this. And yeah, it's completely offset because I didn't animate the pointy point of the mouse pointer, but instead, of course, I animated from the origin. So where I had my mouse as I was recording this motion sketch, it was the center of the origin point of this sprite, the layer. So I will just move the origin point there. Of course, I can't move the origin point now that I have a animation on top. At least I can't move it here in the manually, interactively with the mouse, but of course I can change here the coordinates of the anchor point. And now it's at 64, 64, so if I change it to 0, 0, it should be, yes, here. It should be correct that the origin is in the upper left. So let's have a look at it again. So my mouse is here. Then I pick the C cleaner, broom, and zap, 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 dust it off. It's not real time, of course, but now then I put it back, so it should just snap back, and that's the animation. Nice. Okay, so how do we do this? First, here the mouse starts off, and as soon as we can say, yeah, the mouse, now I picked this broom here, I will duplicate this. Where is the broom? This is the broom. So I can now split this layer here. You can see as soon as a layer stops on the timeline, it won't show, but now I've made a copy essentially that has the in point where the other one has its out point. And the reason for this is that this thing here, the new one, is parented to the movement of, thank you very much, of the mouse pointer. So at this point now, it works. Now there we can see some, let's call it Z errors. Of course, I need to place the Unity icon beneath the cleaner icon. There we go. This makes sense. So I'm just dusting it off here. You know what? I can see here I'm not covering everything across here with the mouse. So I need to tweak now here my mouse positions as well. And how do I do this? I can select them here in the node graph, or not the node graph, the graph view as it's called. And the green one is the y-axis, and the red one is the x-axis, of course. So I want to start not that far. Oh man, this was wrong. Just want to take this one here and move it up a bit. Of course, yeah. This is also wonderful with After Effects. You can't move one axis individually. As you can see, the other ones, the one on the bottom, the green one always follows the red one. But since a couple of versions now, this is possible that you can say you want to separate the dimensions. And now this is possible that I can just move here the X this was the anchor point there of the keyframes here. So now that the mouse doesn't move that far to the left. And I want it to move further right now in this part here and also in the bottom part there. So just move the animation keys like this. So it goes all the way across, and yeah, I think I don't need it to go there even that down, that far down. Okay, this is pixel perfect. Oh no, this was very imperfect. So yeah, just that I don't select something there on the y-axis because I don't want this. So you know what, let's do this manually. Let's just hit Shift and manually select this. So, and you can see here some kind of auto easing already going on. I don't need even this keyframe there. And the problem is, as you can see here, now After Effects automatically sets my tangent weights for the Bezier curves, and I hate this. You can turn it off, of course, by making everything linear, but this I also hate, so yeah. This is why I'm not too fond of the After Effects animation curves. So yeah, it works, but this little thing here at the end, what the mouse pointer is doing there, it's a little bit, it feels wrong, like there's nothing there in this segment here. So you know what, I will delete everything here after we've come back 1, 2, 3 from here to here. So essentially this part here, and we got some automatic curves there, but for now just keep them and move everything over there. And yeah, now these axes don't match up, but yeah, let's see if I can, no, not this, if when I interpolate it like this, if it's too jagged or too janky, the movement, yeah, maybe let's move these curves up here as well, those points here, that it's a more fluent motion. So let's have a look at this and then another look at the chat and to see if I've lost you all. So it's really just this brushing across, tap tap tap, and then it should gone. So that should be gone, that it doesn't take too long. Is it hard to reanimate with motion tracking instead of moving the graph? The problem is when then you have to do the animation over again. You can't just do single takes easily, or you can't just combine individual takes of something. And for me, because I'm pretty happy with the movement and the overall speed, just not the positioning, this is faster for me. But of course you can just delete all the keyframes. The problem is when you don't delete all the keyframes, your keyframes might fall in between the existing ones, and then everything is just going haywire. So yeah, this is why this is my preferred way of doing things. And you know what, maybe I don't want, even now that I see it, I don't want to start the broom even that high up. So I'm also moving here the y-axis coordinates a little bit down and clean up what's going on here. Let's have another look at it. Yeah, this is nice, of course. And now I need again to, when the mouse is here, I want, of course, to put back the broom to where it was before. So instead of trying to position this one here again as I had it before, I just delete it and duplicate the one we had there in the front. Just move this one here to the back. So just copying the one that was the right position at the front to the back, and it's just not visible when the mouse is controlling it. And it feels nice because it's as if it snaps back to where it belongs. And let's watch this once more in motion. I'm not quite sure whether I like the timing right now, but I'm not quite sure either of whether this is real time. The playback. Yeah, you know what I don't like, that I take my time here picking the broom, but then move up pretty fast and doing things like this. So let's do some retiming there of the animation. So this is the part where I move up with the mouse. So I want to make this just take longer. So just scale it like this. Also save, thank you. And the only thing, of course, is that the broom needs to be parented much sooner to the mouse pointer then, of course. So let's try this. If I extend this, yeah, this works. Just the mouse pointer is not perfectly where I want it. Is there a connection between them and the broomstick? Not enough. I feel. So what to do about this? Maybe I can just move the mouse point. You know what? This is the fast way. I'm just moving the origin point on the mouse pointer again. Oh, of course, now I can't since I have it parented. So I unparent. I unparent now the broom, then move the anchor point of the mouse pointer. I mean, it's just a couple of pixels, but I really want to make sure that it feels like you're grabbing there the top of the broom, like so. And now I can parent it again after I moved the mouse pointer around. Yes, and does it feel correct when I put it back? Yes, of course. Cool, okay, so this works as well. Oh, save, of course, save. And make another preview. And the last thing, I think, is now finding some cobwebs. Yeah, I really want to make sure that this animation works. It's finding some cobwebs and maybe do some particles, I don't know, for dusting off the icon. Yeah, this works. I think this works. Maybe I will use it in the edit just from this part here when I'm just picking the broom and dusting it off. Okay, so we need some dirt, some grunge for this top here, and then we just have an animated mask that unveiled it. But what I find still funny is when there's just some kind of grime there on the desktop and dust going on. So once far back when, let me just find it, I photographed with my macro lens just dust and dirt pretty much on a couple of different kinds of surfaces and processed those pictures. Just let me find them real quick. Dropbox assets, there we go. Stock photos and graphics, dust textures, there we go. And yeah, it's 16 bits. And this is what my dust textures look like. So I think maybe I will be using this one here. Fun fact, by the way, why there is this little grid. This is the touch screen, the screen part of my Wii U controller, which was brand new back then when I made these photos. Or maybe just this dust G. But on the other hand, maybe, you know what, maybe this works for the desktop if there is this little implied grid. So there it's dust, what's it called? Dust E grid. Okay, I can recall this or remember this. The groom snaps back into place at the end. You don't want the mouse to put it back at the exact pixel perfect place it originally was. You know what? I'm not quite sure. Maybe if I use a perfect sound effect where it just goes something like this, it makes sense because it's pretty much what we all are used to from our user interfaces, that yeah, you just put it in the general direction there and it will snap back. But again, at the same time, yeah, the mouse movement is pretty deliberate there, but also the snapping back doesn't feel out of place actually. Yeah, I think this comes down to a matter of taste. If you could make enough money to do YouTube full-time, would you? Yes, I absolutely would. I mean, I would miss maybe color grading. So maybe I would do it on a project basis, I mean, which I already do. I'm part-time employed, and they're also self-employed. The other part, the self-employed part, is most of the year doing YouTube, unless someone is coming in with their, I don't know, music video, which they need color graded or some kind of commercial. Of course, this makes me much more money than what I make via Patreon and YouTube, which is none at the time. So yeah, of course, I probably would ramp up my YouTube output quite a lot because it's really fun. I enjoy it a lot, and I wish I had more time for it. Okay, so Unity cobwebs. This is where I paste, for starters, my dust. And let's put it on top of everything but the mouse pointer. So like this. So there we got our dust and dirt. Oh man, this looks nasty. And now I just use a screen mode, screen overlay. And of course now the background, since everything has a layer on top of it, the background does, which we had before, the gray background is now gone. So I need to make a new solid layer of this background color. You know what, let's pick just some gray here from the Unity icon and see how this looks. The background of course needs to go in the back. Maybe it is a little bit too strong. Now with the dust, with the dust it all comes down to taste and preference. But yeah, the Unity icon should be real dirty and dusty, and the CCleaner icon I want to be pretty clean because it's the cleaner. Haha, there's the joke. You know what? I will duplicate this layer now and try different things, because now I switch the mode to multiply. And when I invert it, of course, then the dirt will be black. Maybe this will look better. I don't know. Where is it? Channel invert. There we go. Yeah, this looks also nasty, but in a different way. You know what? Let's combine them. But now it looks like a Jackson Pollock painting. Yeah, I'm not quite sold on this one as it looks right now, actually. You know what? Plan B. Let's find some grunge texture. Maybe this works better. And of course a cobweb. For this, we'll go the traditional route of what does Google Images find me? So just say cobweb. And because I want to be pretty much on the, I mean, it's a gray area when you use copyrighted stuff for your own works, but it's a derived work, then it is, what's it called? Not free use. Damn it, I'm fair use. That's the word. But then again, yeah, you're in a gray zone. And this is why I want to make sure that I use usage rights there. I say labeled for reuse with commercial intent, because maybe I will make money off YouTube someday. And so this is why I want to make sure that everything is already somewhat, legally not too much of a clear case cut where it says, yeah, he just stole something. Okay, so here we got this one on YouTube. What does it say? Free for commercial use, no attribution required. It's a Pixabay license. Wonderful, wonderful. The other place that I go to for this kind of images is unsplash.com, which I've only learned about recently, like 1 year ago. And if you need any kind of very well processed and photographed stuff, you can find them here on Unsplash, and it's usually the resolution is very high, but it's more like in the vein of when you're doing some kind of presentation and you need some very nice looking graphics. But oftentimes I use it just as sources for background plates or even textures, something. So let's just try web. Maybe it will find some web developer here. Maybe this web looks nice, but it's too nice. You know, it's when you want to use something for a texture or layer this with a bouquet and this very artsy perspective, I can't use it actually. So yeah, the rest is just web development, I'm assuming. So I should have used Spiderweb. I mean, this one here, water photograph on droplets. This is just beautiful, right? But completely unusable for my intentions. So you know what? Let's just search for grunge. And there we go. This looks good from Becca Levin. This looks very good. View image. So let's download free. We can say thanks. And I usually copy this line here when I'm doing my daily colorist tweets on my other Twitter handle, but I haven't had time for my other Twitter. So yeah, it's good if you can to give credit. So where the hell did I save this now? Where does this go? Oh, it went straight on the desktop, the good old way. So I just copy and import it into my image sources folder. This is good. So thank you, Becca. And let's try. And you can see here the resolution of Unsplash is always very, very nice. So where is the nastiest part of this texture there? Maybe here. I will try and use now linear burn. Okay, now maybe this is a little bit too grungy, but it's good. Other Twitter, yes, I'm using one Twitter is Pixel Prophecy and the other Twitter is Phil Strahl. This is my colorist professional Twitter where I'm mostly tweeting colorist related stuff, like where I'm complaining about the horrible footage that I get. Or when Premiere is crashing, I even retweeted myself on my other account, which is, I think, grounds for landing in hell, that you retweet your own tweets from a different account. So this is very classy. It's very classy. Okay, so I'm using now a color correction there. Let's try curves there. And to see how this grunge thing looks there, maybe I'm using, let's try overlay. Just trying the different blending modes that this looks to be like some kind of nasty part of a desktop where not a lot goes, essentially, where not a lot of people go there to do stuff. So I'm just moving it around, maybe have it here more dirty where the Unity icon is. Yeah, maybe something, I think I like this. Okay, and now I'm starting to use a mask there and like this. But inverted, of course, so that the grunge is, of course, only on one side. So I will feather the mask now, that it's bleeding out a little bit. And make sure that there is none, and maybe also with the cleaner, it's a lot cleaner around the cleaner, so that only the Unity is in this part of the desktop where there's already some kind of dirt accumulating. I kind of like this. Okay, so maybe I will try now just for experimentation's sake to, again, this was the origin, to scale it up and down around the icon, just to see if I can make it look, it's more interesting, if it's the grunge frequency is a little bit like this. Yeah, I think I like it like this better. So of course now I have to, no, not this, not you. I have to adjust the mask. So let's just pull it like this. Of course, I could have inverted the mask and said, yeah, only what I select will be visible and not what I don't, but yeah, either way. Okay, and let's bring in now the cobweb from Flickr. Did I save it? Did I just open it up? I think I just opened it up. So save image as. Where was the folder again? I think half of my time I'm spending of my life is just drilling down the folder structure to put things where they belong. Cobwebs, image sources, cobweb. Okay, cool. Import file, cobweb, there we go. This is pretty cool because it's just white on black. So that means I can just use a screen or add filter and it just goes on top there. So yeah, this looks really nice. Actually, this looks fun. Like the Unity icon was caught in some kind of cobweb. But yeah, I will try with the curves now to see what I can do here with the web to pronounce it even more, or just give it a little bit more contrast. Something like this, but I also don't want to make it appear that Unity is a spider sitting inside or a big cobweb. So you know what? I will just rotate this around a little bit, like so. And the question that I'm having right now is, since I'm going up with the mouse here and cleaning it up, is usually when you take or just go through a cobweb, of course you rip it apart and it reacts, and the threads just hang around like this. And what I'm doing here is just, my idea was just animating a mask on top of it where I remove the dirt or something. So I'm not quite sure how to go about this, that the cobweb looks like I'm tearing it apart correctly. So maybe I just have it here on one edge or something, and then once I'm starting to come here in with the mouse, it's that the cobweb is just pulsating a little bit, like there's this gust of wind coming from the mouse. And this is rather easy to animate because we got this beautiful puppet tool as it is. Let's save this before I'm starting to do this. The puppet tool is this wonderful icon. I think, no, this was the roto brush. I'm so sorry. Refine edges. Where is the puppet tool? Oh, of course, it's right next to it. The puppet position pin tool. Oh, man, say this 3 times in a row or just once. And essentially, it's a little bit like skinning a character, but in 2D. So if I put here a pin on this point and a pin on this point, and then I can just pull the pin around, and the other pin, of course, stays pinned where it is. So instead of doing this, I just pin here the edges, and when I'm coming here with the mouse, maybe also this edge here, so that it looks like this spider web was fixed there on the desktop. And then coming here with the mouse, it's just going a little bit back and forth like so. And the good thing is it automatically keyframes when you start putting down those pins. So when I'm pulling up this one here, just for demonstration's sake, you can see here that it's already being animated, which is cool. So I'm not using this right now, just saving it, because what I want to do now before animating the web is making sure that the Unity icon looks real dirty before, and when I brush this away that it looks better. Because right now it looks too clean. I don't know, it looks too clean to me. That's the sort of thing you make someone say to make sure they're human and not some clever AI. I don't know what I've said, but I think I made so many mistakes. I must be human. Because of course I am. Just like you, fellow humans. Alright, back where we were. Okay, more dirt there. And I can see, of course, now the brush is also underneath the grunge layer. So where's the grunge layer? I just put it here. No, this was the cobweb. Becca, there's Becca, the grunge layer by Becca. So the mouse pointer stays clean, the cleaner icon stays clean, the cleaner broom stays clean, but not what's underneath, and that's the Unity icon. So, how to make it even dirtier, this Unity? Oh, I have an idea. But for that, let's go to Photoshop, because I need to draw this. So I make a new Photoshop composition. Doesn't have to be as big as before. It's just like 512, like by 512. Let's make the background white, because I want, if you know from maybe some building fronts where there's this old sign and behind it was affixed with some kind of metal, and when it rains and you can see the rust dripping down, something like this, and really the grunge comes down where the thing was affixed to the building. So this is what I'm going to draw right now. So I make a new layer, just real quick, and use some black color there. Okay, maybe the blue background is throwing me off a bit, so let's just make it white. This was a very convoluted way of making it, brightening it up, but what the hell. So let's pick a grungy brush, round reverse corner brush. Where do we have my fills brushes? There we go. I have a lot of brushes over the years, and let's do some scatter brushes, salt, strong. So this is my dirt brush there. That the other thing is still there, I don't matter. It doesn't matter to me, because now I'm using this wonderful smudge tool, and I'm just pulling it down like this, maybe straight. This would also help there to have this kind of, the weather was really was really affecting this over a couple of years now, that it just, no, this was wrong. Oh, this was also wrong. That's the right tool. No, this was the wrong tool. What happened? What did I do again? Why? Oh, of course, this smudge tool now also uses some kind of strange brush. Yeah, the smudge tool uses my pencil brush, so this I don't want. So, okay, if I'm pulling it down like this, This works. I don't need it here on top, just below the Unity logo. And you know what? Since I have this dirty scatter brush here, you know what? We can make it something like this. Oh, this is a little bit too strong. That's a bit too strong. I put it on a new layer there and just make it a bit softer like so. So yeah, it looks really, really nasty. Okay, I will save this. I don't need to save it as as a Photoshop file. You know what? Just save it as a PNG. Don't even have transparency. I just can multiply it over it. And here we are, cobwebs, image sources, and I just call it dirt for lack of a better word. Okay, let's import dirt and put it behind the Unity icon. Should be there. And maybe also behind the Unity text. There we go. Yeah, this looks nice. Maybe make it even a bit smaller. Well, not that small. Undo. Something like this. And now I can just multiply it or linear dodge. No, this the other way. Linear burn. Like this. Maybe this is too strong. Maybe I just go with multiply and tweak here the curves again. Color correction curves. There we go. Yeah, this doesn't look too new, does it? Maybe, you know, maybe like I said before, that it looks a little bit rusty. Maybe I give it a red tint or something. So I'm in the RGB curves. Just take the green curve and pull it upwards. Oh no, of course not the green one. Sorry, I was thinking in negatives. So I'm just taking here, not this one. Reset, green, red. Just pulling in the red one here so that it looks a little bit like rust. And the green one for making it a bit more orange, like this. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit too strong. So I just decrease here the opacity, something like this. Yeah, this looks like an old grungy icon. So let's see what to do with the dust there. I really like now this black dirty specks there on the Unity icon. You know what? I just realized that to make the Unity icon look real grungy, instead of applying this thing here to the background and the icon, this grunge thing, where do I have it? I just put it underneath the Unity icon and mess up the icon now in Photoshop. I think this should make it look even worse. And it's quite easy because we already have it here. So I just duplicate it now. And how to mess this thing up? Well, for one thing is there should be nothing that's real white on it anymore. Something like this. But also this shiny reflective surface there, I wanted to have it some kind of, yeah, just spots and stuff on it. So yeah, I'm applying now my scatter brush like so, and just give it here a little bit of texture, maybe like this. And now I just blur it because I have it on a separate layer here. Yeah, this is too strong. Something like this. And again, I'll be using this smudge tool there just to smudge it around a little bit like this. And like I said, this a little bit of color that it looks yeah, that it looks like it rusted or something. So I'm just picking there a reddish brown color and just very subtly with my scatter brush there, just in the edges there, I'm just making it a little bit reddish there, something like this. Blurred a little bit and even more. So yeah, this doesn't look nice, this doesn't look good. And I just delete everything that's outside, so that all that remains is this grungy, ugly Unity icon. Oh, this is so bad. You know what? I will sharpen it even, that it will get a little bit more texture. So I've just where is my history? I don't know. I just want to show you before and after sharpening. But this should be fine to finish things off. Let's call it Unity icon grungy. And when I'm moving my brush over it, I'm just blending the Unity icon that it's this ungrungy version. So import file Unity grungy. Where do I have the Unity icon? There it is. And I just duplicate it, and by holding down Alt and pulling it in, I can replace it. And wow, this looks wonderfully horrible. The cobweb maybe is a little bit too strong again. Maybe I give it a little less, make it a little less pronounced, and the grunge underneath the Unity icon. Maybe this is a little bit too distracting, so I'm just decreasing it like so. So yeah, I think this is what we can work with. And as soon as I'm starting here to clean this off, then I start fading out this grungy icon and fade in, or I don't actually have to fade in the other icon because it lies underneath. So I'm saying here transparency 100 and animating it here until that we are at this point, and then it's gone and it's clean underneath somewhat. And I don't need the clean icon to show up before we are starting to do this blending. And let's have a look at this. What the hell? Of course, yeah, sorry. I also disabled the other Unity icon. Okay, so how do you like it? I think this works. Maybe now this grungy part underneath the dirt is still too strong. Like this should suffice, that it still reads as the Unity icon and that it doesn't blend together. And lastly, let's animate here now the cobweb. And I think then we're done. Cobweb, there we go. Where's my pin tool? There we go. So here the mouse moves up, and once we are here, we start moving this a little bit so that it goes up and down just a little bit, that it keeps pulsing, and in the end rests again. So yeah, let's see how my attempted animation feels there. Okay. Yeah. Look at this. It looks exactly how I wanted it to look. Wow. Cool. So maybe for the background there, it's for some reason it feels a little bit too bright for me. But yeah, I think this works for us. So I dusted off the cobwebs of the Unity icon. Well, we're not really dusting the cobwebs off, but we're dusting off the Unity icon next to the cobwebs. I think this is fine, but I think I still like how how we're picking the brush there from the cleaner. What do you think? If anyone is still around, 10 concurrent viewers. Wow, I'm still surprised that after 40 minutes of just being a complete idiot, that still so many people kept hanging around. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's have a look at the chat. And oh, of course, I need to save this and render it out, or at least set up the rendering. Use QuickTime, trillions of colors. Why not? Yeah, I think I don't need an alpha channel, and I don't need trillions of colors because this is 8-bit anyway. So I think this should be fine. And let's specify a name and say Unity Cobwebs version 01. And thank you so much for watching, and let's have another look at the chat. What's going on? Oh, and by the way, unicorn. That's all my water I had today. You need to click the icon still, right? Right. Oh, damn it. So I think this is what I will be doing right after this stream. But essentially, it won't be much of a problem. As you've seen now, I will just animate the mouse back up to the icon and then have it highlight or something. Or what happens when I click something? Yeah, when the mouse moves over it. Let me just show you real quick that we are all on the same page. There we go. If I hover something with the mouse, I get this little rectangle there, and when I click it, then it gets this highlighted thing here. So I think this is what I will also do, but yeah, I think you don't have need to watch this because it's pretty straightforward, and I'm well over time already. This stream has been going on for 2 hours and 4 minutes, or actually 2 hours and 15 minutes almost. Christ. Okay, if there's nothing else to say, all I can say is, again, thank you so much for staying with me and watching me do this little animation wisecracking there. And yeah, and also thank you so much for being the ones who are looking forward to my LD45 documentary and all the other things that I do. I got quite a lot in the pipeline, but my focus right now is on getting another post-mortem out before doing anything else. Apart from that, yeah, thank you so much. Let me just be sure that I'm on the right slide there in my OBS, because I'm a one-man show. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great remaining Sunday, and may the unicorns watch over every one of you. Bye.